on Sunday. What time's church ends? At 7:02 Sunday night. I've completely forgotten. Chapter 15. And I want to look at verse 19. I guess we could actually, let's start with verse 12. Verse 19 is sort of the culminating verse, but we'll start with verse 12. So 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 12 through 19, we read, Now if Christ is preached that he has been raised from the dead, how do some among you say that there is no resurrection of the dead? But if there is no resurrection of the dead, then Christ is not risen. And if Christ is not risen, then our preaching is empty, and your faith is also empty. Yes, and we are found false witnesses of God, because we have testified of God that he raised up Christ, whom he did not raise up, if in fact the dead do not rise. For if the dead do not rise, then Christ is not risen. And if Christ is not risen, your faith is futile. You are still in your sins. Then also those who have fallen asleep in Christ have perished. If in this life only we have hope in Christ, we are of all men most pitiable. Some will say most miserable right there as well. I wanted to say that to start with because that's not the focus of what we're going to talk about tonight, but we are walking in hope. But it kind of dawned on me as we were talking here at the beginning, and we mentioned several truly bad situations. I don't know of any worse situation than a 12-year-old dying of cancer 3 weeks after finding out, unless it's a 5-month-old being operated on and with difficult proceedings going forward. That's really difficult. And it's hard for us to sort of approach that sometimes. You know, when people are older and advanced age, we pass away and it makes sense, even though it's difficult. When people are lost in accidents or something, we can kind of chalk it up to the dangers of the world, you know. I mean, we're back and forth and things happen, you know, but it's tough to see that with little ones, little kids. And I think that those are the kind of things that can drag us down. And I hope that those verses there that we read can be a little bit more comfort, that there's, if Christ done what he did, then our life would just be sort of as it is. There'd be nothing to look forward to. And I think that during a time like this, for those families that are facing just terrible difficulties, maybe there's one little bit of light that can be gleaned onto and that can be of comfort to them in some way. So I certainly hate to hear the story, but I wanted to read that first for us. We're going to talk tonight about walking in hope. And the entirety of these lessons have dealt with walking. And so I'm going to ask you a question that you probably don't know the answer to. But do you know, or do you remember the first time that you walked when you were a little bitty child? No, we don't, right? Now, if you could talk to your parents, they probably would. They probably have pictures, or they may have a story about it. But I remember when Will first started to kind of sort of walk. And I was very nervous because he was doing more falling than he was walking. And he loved to walk around our coffee table, but our coffee table is wooden and it's really solid. And I just thought every time he's going to fall and he's going to hit his chin on that, and it's going to just, you know, smack him upside the head. Probably wouldn't hurt him. He's pretty tough, but it did make me kind of worry about it. But then it wasn't long after that he was walking pretty quickly. And we almost were thinking, I wish he wasn't walking, because now we got to keep up with things. So I remember Dad come over and we put a deadbolt on top of the door leading down to the basement so he couldn't reach it. But then all these things, because now we're worried that he's going to go too far. Again, can't go out. The front door was real close to the front, the road, all that. It's brought us different set of problems, right? But when we walk, it doesn't take long for us to start running. And I think in these lessons this week or this month that we've done, this walking with Jesus, I hope that we can run in some of these directions as well. Let's talk first about a Christian hope. And we'll say these first two things, that it's both living and it is secure. Our first reading is from Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 19. Thomas, you care to read the first one there? So it describes our hope here as an anchor. We talked about an anchor in a verse, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and the purpose of an anchor, but it's both sure and it's steadfast. And I think that's things that we like to experience, things that are both sure and that are steadfast. Let's go. This one's, yes. Right. Right. Sure. And I've actually got a question that's kind of similar to that here in a second. We'll talk a little bit more about that. This is First Peter chapter 1. It's a little bit longer, verses 3 through 9. Boo, do you care to read this one? Thank you. So we look at this up here in particular, a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. This is Peter, but we had just read from First Corinthians. That's a very similar worded comment from Paul there. And so you sometimes hear people say that a group of people are on message. They're all presenting the same thing. That we kind of have the same thing coming right here. And we'll see those two described as sort of the apostle to the Jews and the apostle to the Gentiles, but the same lesson worked for both of them. There wasn't a different story for one compared to the other. Let's look at the third one. This is Titus chapter 2, verses 11 through 14. Mom, do you care to read that one? I want us to think about this but this first question, because we've read about hope in all three of these. What is the difference between wishful thinking and confident expectation? And I ask this because hope can be both. What is the difference between these two things? Yes, sir. Sure. Sure. How else would we comment? Sure. 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 Oh. Uh-huh. Sure. Mary, did you? Right. Ben?
Wishful thinking depends on me. Confident expectation is on somebody else, on God.
Yeah.
I'll mess it up. I'm going to mess it up. You give it to me, I'm going to mess it up. You give it to God, he did.
I've told a few stories about playing basketball, and the last year that I played basketball, we were terrible. We lost our first 15 games, and we were just not good. But we were getting ready to play Boyle County, who was the best team in the region that year. And we had a pep rally or something at school. We mostly was leaning on the girls. Hopefully the girls would win. That was what we was trying to get excited about because they would win, but we weren't going to. But I remember, like, I don't know what had happened, but it had gotten us kind of pumped up. And me and my friend, he played all the time. I was guarding the water as close to the bucket as I could. But we were like, man, it feels like something feels different tonight. And so we're sitting there watching the girls' game. We said that. Our other friend who didn't come up, we said, my buddy, he said, I think something feels different. I think we're going to win. He said, no, you're not. We got beat 94-44, if I remember correctly, which that's exactly what happened. But I say that because we were wishful thinking. Like, no amount of evidence said that we were going to win that game, and we didn't win that game. And it wouldn't have mattered what happened. But we can be wishful thinking, but it's not realistic. And so if our hope is just wishful thinking, well, maybe we're no different than 1 Corinthians chapter 15 right there, where you're pitiful. If you had heard me and Stephen sitting there talking about that, you'd have said, those they're pitiful, bless their hearts. They just need to go on home, whatever. But we have a confident, I would imagine that the kids on the other side, on the other bench, had a confident expectation that they were going to be victorious. And it's a lot better to have a confident expectation than it is wishful thinking. It may work out in wishful thinking, but that's difficult to expect it. More than that, number 2, Peter described our hope as living. But what do you think he meant by the term living hope? Okay. Continuous. Ongoing. Yeah. How else would we? Any other thoughts on a living? Others? Right. Action. If it's not living, it can sort of be put away, right? I think about like your bookshelf at home. The books are inanimate, right? You can pull them off and use them, but there are books on my shelf that I've not read in 20 years. That they still have stuff in them, but they're not really living for me. But if you decide this evening that you're going to buy a fish or a dog or a cat, and you put it on the shelf and don't touch it for 20 years, it's going to be real bad. If it's living, it's got to have action with it. We've got to work with it. It's got to be fed. And the same of our hope as well. How do we feed our hope? Through the word. How else? Through prayer. Through interactions through worship and interactions with other Christians. All of those are ways in which we do that. And so that I kind of got ahead of myself on the question there, but how can remembering the resurrection, which I think actually 4 verses make reference to that we just read, how can remembering the resurrection then give us daily strength? Not just a few minutes strength once a week, but daily strength. Sure. Uh-huh. Sure. Mm-hmm. Right. Others? Mm-hmm. And if it's something that a lot of times something that somebody does for us is more memorable than maybe something that we do on our own, and that's certainly something that we should remember as well. Let's go. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
It takes my heart and my mind to this place every time you read it. And if you read that daily, it will take your mind and your heart to a different place daily.
Yeah.
Without pain, without sorrow, you just concentrate on
Right.
what he went through and what he did for us.
With most anything, focus is important, right? And it kind of recenters our focus. Mary had a car once, and I think it was construction or what, and it buzzed. The car buzzed, and it said, "You seem tired. Would you like a cup of?" And a cup of coffee popped up like a picture of that. I was like, "It's road construction. Like I'm off the road because I have to be off the road." But then later it popped up on me twice, and one time was like I was like adjusting my seatbelt, and I did go off the side of the road. But it doesn't take us long to lose focus, and we got to kind of center back in right there. And Thomas, I think you're right. If we think about it here at 10:45 on Sunday morning, and then by 10:49 we don't think about it ever again, well, we'll lose focus on it, and we're going to forget it as the time goes along. All right, second thing, hope then inspires living, and this is kind of what you were getting at just a little bit right there as well. 1 John chapter 3 verses 2 and 3. Leland, do you care to read this one, sir? All right. And so we can see here that we have a hope in something. I'm going to consider this for just a second. It says, "It has not yet been revealed what we shall be, but we know that when he is revealed, we shall be like him." How do you read that? How do you interpret that? Yeah. When we've changed. Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh. It's challenging for us in to know what our next move is going to be, right? And we want to, if I'm going to go to this, or I had a thing on Monday night, and it was I texted my boss. It's like, "Is this a suit and tie kind of thing?" He said yes. I'd have felt bad if I'd went in like a tank top and shorts. I might not have looked exactly right. We kind of want to know what we need to look like right here. But it says here, and I think this is as honest as it says, it's not really been revealed, and we don't really know what it is. But it also says that we shall be like him. And so it kind of takes away our vanity of what are we going to look like, right? And I'm sure if we're not careful, I hope my heavenly body I'm a little taller, right? I hope I got a little more hair, look a little nicer. It doesn't take us long to sort of slip into that kind of thought right there. But the focus is that's not what's important. We will be like Jesus. Thomas. This would have been after. Yeah. So when he would come back at the close of time, at the end of time. And so, we talk about the trumpet sounding and all of that kind of stuff. And it doesn't give like he's going to look just like Ben or something like that. So that's what it was, is stop focus on, the physical and more on the spiritual right there. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 17 and 18. Lucille, do you care to read this one? Oh, I'm sorry, Lucille. Hold on.
That was written before Revelation as well. And of course, we see Revelation where he was shown in the vision where he come before Jesus. He didn't recognize him or didn't recognize him. But so I was wondering if that vision gave John, which, like I said, he didn't say another vision for later.
Sure.
If he got to see what we probably would.
Could be. Lucille, this one. So this set of verses is I've got 3 questions here that are going to deal with them. So just hold on for a second. But I want you to consider this for our light affliction. I want you to think about that for a second. And then the things which are seen, here we are. For the things which are seen are temporary. So I want you to think about the term light affliction and things which are seen are temporary. The first question, how can we become more hopeful? Yeah. It's dawning on me, I probably should have put the second question first. So I'll let you look at both of them, and I'll just let you answer which one we want, because I wasn't really sure what the best one to ask in the first one. How can we become more hopeful? And the second question, what can sort of take away hope from us? Let's maybe answer that one first. We had light affliction and problems of this world or life are temporary. What can steal our hope? The world? Maybe more specific. What kind of things? Disappointments, negativity, other people, and maybe not even on purpose sometimes, but it can be. Greed and other just sort of things that become idols to us that we get more focused on. Uh-huh.
If you have ongoing sin in your life, and that kind of diminishes your hope because you're thinking, well, I got this willful sin in my life, am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
So it takes away that hope that you have.
Troubles and things, what we talked about at the beginning of church tonight. Those are things that can certainly take away hope from us. And those are challenges that many, maybe all of you, have faced in some point because of difficulties and trials in our life. So how do we guard against that, Shelb? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Tom? Sure. What else that we could guard against? So when we think about guarding, there's a couple things that I think about. I think about playing basketball, and you had to guard, your man, right? And as you can tell from my first story, I wasn't real good at it. I didn't like to do it either, but he was trying to get somewhere, and I was, in an ultimate sense, I was protecting what was theoretically mine, which was the basket right there. You may have a guard dog that's protecting anything that's there. You may put a fence. Some of you have fences around your property to guard or to protect it, and they may be coming to steal. And so how do we guard against those things? Well, we had a couple of examples there. We have to have a long-term vision of what we're dealing with. We have to study to help keep that as well. So Go back to number one then. How can we then become more hopeful? Not just hopeful, but more hopeful. Okay. Faith. Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Any others? Well, the third one, and y'all have gotten really good at answering the questions before we ask them. I think Ben and Dad both answered this one. But how does a focus on eternity help us overcome trials, temptations? I would even throw in just general difficulties that might not necessarily be a temptation, but can be deflating to us. How does a focus on eternity do that? Help us with that. Say again. Prayer. How so? Okay. Sure. Thomas? Or I'm sorry, wrong person. Tom. Uh-huh. Yes.
You can't focus on two things. I mean, you can half do two things, but you can't truly. Like Peter walking on the way. As soon as he seen the way, he focused on Jesus.
Right.
He began to sink in the same way. But if we keep our focus on eternity, on heaven, on getting there, on seeking first the kingdom of God, then that other stuff's going to blend away.
Right.
We can't focus on it.
Yep. Any others? Yes.
We can focus, what can help us focus is reading what Jesus went through, the temptation in the desert, and everything that he had to go through leading up to the crucifixion. You know, and if we can go through half of what he went through, temptation.
Right. So we do that in a lot of look at examples and of what they can or can't do, and that's a good example. That's a good way to look at it as well. Now, our first thing is, or what we've talked about so far, is that hope is living, and then the second thing is that we've got to grow it within ourselves. I want, I need you to be good. I gotta make sure I'm right first. But then it also can serve as a comfort to a world that sometimes seems hopeless. How much TV do you think you would need to watch tonight to feel hopeless about the status of the world? Not much, right? And probably on multiple channels. I mean, it's a simple thing, but like I saw last night to this morning, there was a bad earthquake off the coast of Russia, which that's bad enough. But then it said there's a potential tsunami going to hit California and Alaska and Hawaii. And it's, you're thinking, like, if I had lived in Northern California, that the spot where this morning it said there's still the most dangerous spot, that's probably my favorite place I've ever been in the world. If you had lived there, you haven't done anything wrong. And all of a sudden, like, bad is coming. So it doesn't take long for us to say, well, I'm doing everything right. And it still can become hopeless. So we can be part of a hopeless world pretty easily. So I want to think about that for a second. We got a couple of verses here. Colossians chapter 1 and verse 27. Mary, can you read that one? This one's a little longer. Romans 5, 1 through 5. Shep, can you read that one? Okay. And then one more here. Maria, you want this one? Jim's not here to get this long reading, so I'll let you do it instead. So if we go back for just a second, if we look, this is a very quick verse here at the beginning. But Christ is our hope, to put it real simple. But then if we read in this one, that hope is sort of a building process, right? And that when things go wrong or when things go bad or when we have, as it says here, tribulations, that those actually produce perseverance, the ability to be able to get through things. I can do this. And when you see that you can accomplish something, it strengthens, as it says, your character, and your character then your hope. And so hope to me in those verses right there is not necessarily something that's always going to be strong. Like, it has to be exercised. It has to be challenged. It has to be, sometimes drugged through difficult situations, whatever those might be. And then the last one that Maria read right there then is that sometimes, we can sort of be diminished by worries about people that have gone on before us. And we can read back here and says, we don't need to be ignorant about those. Our hope is always moving forward. Hope doesn't go backwards, but it should be looking forward. And the people that we would be concerned about have already moved forward. Is it to simplify it, as David said, he can't come to me, but I can go to him. And it's the same sort of process. I'm sorry, Thomas, go ahead.
So is that what they mean by, I feel like I'm being tested sometimes?
Sure. Sure. I don't know if it's necessarily God testing us, but it could be that way. But we're going to be challenged by everything. And when you overcome something, you feel success at that, right? It's the same way, you take the chapter 1 math test and you pass it or you make a good grade on it. You're excited about that, right? But there's going to be a chapter 2 math test, and you can't let chapter 1 isn't going to answer chapter 2. But you can build off of your comfort and your excitement from that to go on. So I think that, those challenges absolutely are things like that we can build off of. And they're like a wellspring of strength that you can draw back on. When I was going through this problem, here's something that I did. Well, now I've got a new problem. Maybe I can do something similar with that. Will. Yeah. Right. 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 Ben?
I think that's one thing too that trips people up on both sides of it, on Christians and also unbelievers as well. They see this mean, vile person over here that's living his best life ever, and this Christian over here struggling. And they're like, see that proves, well, no. Satan knows that difficult, hard times make us turn to God. So if you're lost, Satan's not going to give you a hard time because you're right where he wants you to be.
That leads us into this then, which is, what are some signs that someone maybe around us has lost hope? And then I guess to go along with what Ben said, can we sometimes misinterpret those signs as well? But what are some signs that maybe someone has lost hope? Depression, it could be. Maybe lack of, being around other Christians. Give in to difficulties, whatever it is. Sure. Yes. And if someone loses a child or goes through some sort of serious difficulty such as that. And so for us then, let me see, make sure. How can we use, and maybe introduce isn't the right word, but how can we either introduce or further use the gospel as a source for hope? That person that that is dealing with whatever it is, and y'all fill in the blanks because you just did all of them. How can we help them beyond just saying, I love you, or it'll be okay? And there's a time and place for those, but what are some ways that we can use the gospel to help? Right.
Like people that are just freshly been baptized, you don't put them on the back row.
Right.
You nurture them.
Sure.
You help them.
Yep.
And we can help them grow in the gospel that way, because every Christian knows that we have hope in Jesus.
Right.
And we have hope in His promise. You know, maybe we can teach somebody else that.
Sure. How else?
Remind them of God's promise.
Uh-huh.
That they're not empty promises, that they're hope.
Right. Right. Yeah. Sure. Mm-hmm. Right. 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 Sure. Yeah. Miserable. Mm-hmm. I think we all could give examples of things that people at church, or people that are in our at work, or people at our neighbors have done for us in times of difficulty, right? And they're not it wouldn't be the same answer, right? If I said, I went through this, whatever, and here are 5 people. Well, they didn't all hug me, but maybe one of them hugging me really helped, right? But they didn't all cook for me, but maybe one of them cooking, or just you fill in whatever it is would be. And sometimes when we're thinking about like introducing or using the gospel as a source of hope, Boo just said it, like there's countless stories. Literally everybody in the Bible messes up all the time. Like Jesus is the only one, but every other character in the Bible messes up all the time. And so it's not hard to find like examples in the Bible of things happening that we can apply, to our lives. And so we can find those examples and we can see how that works. And we can also see real life examples of, I did this and it did not work, or whatever it might would be. What else do you think on the second question, like using the gospel as a source of hope? Nobody else? Y'all are quieter tonight than we've been. Sure. Right. Sure. Right. 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 This last thing is that you carry a message that the world desperately needs. Every one of you are holding a Bible or a phone that with your Bible on it. And you can use that in countless ways to be able to help other people. And then we're all carrying experience with us as well that we can use in countless ways to help others as well. And Boo took it kind of there at earlier, but said that hope is the one sort of thread that kind of runs through. And I think she's exactly right. So I want you to consider this last question, and we've finished every night with a question like this, but how can you help yourself and others grow in hope this week? One of the things that we always would talk about when we went to Bible school, and you'll remember this as well, is that you wanted to bring your friends, right? And the point of it was to learn and then go out and use that to, when a couple weeks later when school started, that you would behave and that you would do the right thing and all that. And it's really no different for us today, right? We still have to go out and help others and care for others. And so you don't have to answer this, but I do want you to think about it as we finish as well. How can we grow in these things? All of these things, every one of our lessons, I ended with the same or similar question. How can I do better at it? If you die tonight, if you die 100 years from tonight, whenever that is, the time interim between, we need to be growing and doing better at all of these things. We'll never be perfect. That's not possible. But our growth can help so many other people as well. So don't just think about it as an individual thing, but as a group thing as well. I hope you've enjoyed our classes this month, and I hope that we've gained something from it here as well. I appreciate your all's participation, your all's interest in it as well. And we'll next week we will not have class. We will do our box packing, and then the week after that, I think we're going to go into the Old Testament and talk a little bit about that. So for a few weeks, I think that's kind of where we're leaning. Don't hold me to it. I may change it though. So thank you. Let me go ahead and put it up there. Do you want this?